the Sig P226 Police Trade-In. Let's check it out. Aim Surplus is one of my go-to sites, has been so for a number of years. And one of the big things that I like to do is find police trade-ins or surplus firearms that are being imported into the country at very reasonable prices. And guys, you can typically find these guns for a great deal. And usually they're in really good shape. Lately, there's a lot of 40 caliber handguns out on the market because a lot of police agencies are going back to the 9mm. Now that does not mean that the 40 Smith & Wesson is not a viable self-defense option. These pistols are Sig P226s, which are legendary. They've been used by special forces for a number of years. In fact, the Navy SEALs use these for a long time because they're just durable, they're reliable, and they can just take whatever you dish out. These are running $339 on the Aim Surplus website, and there are limited supplies. This is the DAK Trigger, which is a double action only trigger. One thing about these, they typically run retail over $1,000. Now, first thing we're going to do is make sure the gun is unloaded. So we're going to relieve the magazine, and we're going to double check, make sure the gun is empty. One thing about the Sig is that it is a very smooth operation, which you would expect from a firearm of this quality. And the magazines hold 12 rounds of 40 caliber. It does come with just one magazine. The extra magazines, factory magazines on Gun Mag Warehouse are $34.99. One thing about this pistol that's a little different than your standard P226 is this is a double action only pistol, and it's their DAK Trigger. That means that when you pull the trigger, you're getting the hammer all the way back. There's no single action. That hammer will never be in the cocked position. It's always in that recessed position. The only thing is, when the slide is racked, it goes into a half-cock position. And so it makes it a lot easier to pull that trigger. The trigger is, according to AIM, it said 6.5 pounds. I was getting just a little over 7-pound trigger. But one of the things about this trigger is it's super smooth. The trigger here is just a smooth take up, and it starts to get a little, you can feel the tension build, and then a nice, very crisp snap. Now there are a couple of things that need to be addressed about the DAK trigger. First off, we're going to check reset. When you notice you'll bring it out, you have a reset right there. Now that's pretty far out, but if you continue, there's a second reset. Now, one of the things about that second reset is that when you pull the trigger, it is the lighter trigger pull. On the first reset, it is a much heavier trigger pull. And if you'll notice at the range, I was letting my finger go all the way out. That's part of the reason, is I was letting it go all the way to get that second reset. So it's going to have some trigger pull that's a little bit heavy if you don't let it continue out. And that just is kind of different. I mean, it's going to take some serious practice and training to get that down. Now, one thing too, a problem is when you're pulling the trigger, it's really long. And so the tendency is to dip the pistol, because you're bringing it back so far that you're anticipating the shot, and it can cause you to miss the target or miss your point of aim. So those are some things about this trigger that are difficult. And if you are pretty new to guns and you haven't had a lot of experience, this is not a pistol that you want to buy as a first gun, because this is going to be fairly difficult to master. Now, one thing that you can do You can send this back to Sig and they can install one of their standard single action, double action triggers, and its labor and everything is like $199 the last time I saw it. I don't know if that's still the case, but that is cheaper than actually buying the parts and installing them yourself, or about the same price. So I think that would be a great option if you wanted to get this for this super price. Send it back to Sig, pay a couple of $100 and have that whole trigger kit replaced, and then you still have your DAK trigger if you want. Now, it is an aluminum frame with a steel slide. It has a nitron finish on it, which is just impervious to any kind of elements, but it is a stainless steel slide as well, so you have double protection with your slide. The frame is very well machined, as typical for Sig. It has the wraparound polymer grip. It comes all the way around, and there are a number of different grips, aftermarket grips you can get for this pistol, and Hogue is one of the best sources, whether it's G10 wood or you can get the overmold grips. It does have this like beaver tail right here, so it fits nicely in the hand. It's a very natural feeling handgun. Now, one of the things about Sig for me, and has been over the years, is that it does have a very high bore axis. You can see that the slide comes up pretty high over the web of my hand. And so here you can see the height of the bore axis is a little higher. But again, these have been used by special forces around the world, and to good effect for that matter. So, you know, if you're used to shooting with the high bore axis, I personally typically like low bore axis, just because the slide rides closer to the top of my hand and it just mitigates some of the recoil. But with this pistol, even in .40 caliber, it definitely shoots well. A lot of that has to do with the heft of the pistol. Now, it weighs about 34 ounces, so it's not a light handgun, but it really makes it nice when you're firing that .40 caliber. It does have a 1913 Picatinny rail. You can see some of the marks, a little bit of the wear here on the trigger guard, a little wear, but these are really in great condition. And from what I've seen, they are mostly in that condition. Here's a little wear here, but you see this, the serrations that go horizontal all across the front, and then of course you got the texturing of the grip back here. It does have a solid feel. The texturing on the grip is nice. It's not too aggressive, and you feel like you really got it in your hand. You've got good control over it. The length is 7.5 inches in total length, 5.5 inches in height, and it's about 1.5 inches because of some of the controls on the outside and the grip kind of back here in this area. The sights are 3-dot, but they are luminescent. They're not tritium, so they don't necessarily glow on their own, but you can shine a flashlight on here and even an hour later they're still glowing. Now, just to give you a little idea of the sights, we're going to put some light on these sights. And it doesn't take much to get those things to really glow. And I mean, they are fantastic. You know, even better than tritium. These things will glow at first. Now, this frame was made in Germany, and I believe they stopped importing German-made slides back in about 2011, which is a very high quality. You can see that the .40 Smith & Wesson Sig, these are hammer forged barrels, and they're going to have extended life. Of course, any kind of parts or anything you want to do to this pistol is really easy to find these parts. Now, of course, there are a lot of .40 caliber surplus pistols out on the market. And a lot of times, especially like with Glock, it's really easy to install an aftermarket 9mm conversion barrel, and if you really feel like you need to, you can replace the extractor with a .40 caliber extractor. But I've shot Glocks a lot with just the barrel, and we put a lot of rounds through there without any kind of issues. Now, with the Sig P226, it's not that easy. The slide and the barrel have to be changed in the recoil spring, and they do have what they call the exchange kit. There are available from Sig for like $407, which is pretty expensive. I believe on Osage County Gun Works, I found them for about $389. One of the things to think about too, if this gun is running around the $1,000 mark, if you're going to go out and buy a new one, you're paying $339, and then let's say you pay $400 for a exchange kit. You still have only $739, and then you have 2 calibers. One of the things too is on AIM Surplus, you can always find a lot of different deals. They are always running a lot of surplus firearms, many that are coming from overseas, And again, a lot of them are police trade-ins. Predominantly 40 caliber, and that seems to be what's coming through mostly, but there's always 9mm and 45s on there as well. I want to thank Freedom Munitions for supplying the 40 caliber ammunition. You get a 5% discount using Suits00 at freedommunitions.com. Reliability was good, no malfunctions. One time the slide didn't hold back. Also, couple of times when I would put the magazine in, I wouldn't seat it all the way. It just seems to be right there at the end. It wants to just kind of a little slow, but you know, and of course, you know, I did have a malfunction, but that was magazine induced. The feel, of course, is Sig P226. The double action trigger, it definitely takes some time to get used to. It seems like you're pulling so far, you want to go ahead and you anticipate the shot more than you do typically with a regular double action, single action semi-automatic. Definitely more than a striker. But it just has a long, but it is smooth. But definitely I noticed that when I first came down, you know, it was taking me a few minutes to really get on sight. And then once I started shooting, it wasn't a big deal. This is going to be something that you'll really need to train with if you're going to carry that DAK hammer trigger, because it's definitely different with that double action only. Now, some of you guys are probably used to shooting double action only. I'm not. I have a number of times, but it's something you definitely need to master. The ergonomics of the pistol, of course, again, are Sig P226, and it feels really good. It feels solid. So, you know, at the range, it's a P226 with a double action trigger. Now, your magazine release is here, but actually whoever had this pistol before had it switched to the left side. And to be honest with you, instead of switching it out, I take my trigger finger, I hit that mag release, and it is super easy just to pop that mag release out. But it's easily switched to the other side, and that's probably just this pistol. Your typical surplus pistol that you're going to get, or your police trade-in, is going to have that mag release on the left side. It is for right-handed shooters. And there's a gap right here where you typically have your decocker, but because it's double action only, you don't need it. And then you have your slide stop back here. Slide stop just rocks into place, and there you go. You've got it held. Right here is your takedown lever, and we're going to go ahead and bring back the slide and disassemble the pistol. Remove the magazine, and the gun is unloaded. Bring your lever down into this position. One great thing about the Sig P226 is you don't have to pull the trigger. And so we can release our slide stop, and it just comes right off, and you can see how smooth that is. One thing you're going to notice right up front is the long rails for your slide. I mean, these rails are all the way across, and that's going to give you a lot of stability. And you can see this gun has been fired some, but honestly, not a whole lot. Here we have our recoil spring and guide rod. It is all steel. We're going to pull our barrel out, and it is the Browning linkless design. And then here's the interior of the pistol. Sig quality, and that's, again, you're getting Sig quality for a very reasonable price. And guys, that's all you need to do to field strip the handgun. For reassembly, just in reverse order, put in your barrel, your recoil spring and guide rod, and then we're going to return it to our slide, lock it into position, bring your lever up, and you're good to go. Now, a few years ago and subsequently, we've had some ammo shortages at times. When legislation's coming up, ammo just is hard to find. Whether it was 9mm, 22 has been almost impossible to find for a long time. But one thing that I would always find was 40 caliber. One of the things I decided then was I will always have a 40 caliber pistol, if for no other reason that if there's an ammo shortage, I will still be able to find ammo easier for the 40 caliber. All right, let's talk about pros and cons of this pistol. Number one, the pro is that it's a Sig P226. It's excellent quality firearm, and of course it is in the used condition, but it still has a lot of life to it. The price is definitely fantastic, a huge pro at $339. And so, you know, those things right there are excellent. Now, 40 caliber, it's according if you like 40 caliber. That could be a pro. 40 caliber can be a con to a lot of people that like the 9 better. So that's definitely on both ends. The quality of the finish, the sights, everything, the grips, the interchangeability, the parts availability, and of course 40 caliber is, you know, fairly reasonable to shoot. So all those things add up to, you know, a lot of good points. To go into the negatives, number one, it's a 40 caliber. So a lot of people are going to be turned off by 40 caliber because they like the 9mm. But if you're a 40 caliber guy, or if you don't have a 40 caliber, that could be a good point to have that caliber for ammo availability in times of scarcity. Another con, and to me the biggest con of this pistol, would be the DAK trigger. It's smooth, but it's fairly heavy. It's all through double action. Your shots are going to tend to go low unless you really concentrate and you get the practice down. Now, we've seen what the accuracy can be like. It's definitely a very accurate pistol, and you can do that. But this is one handgun that you would seriously need to train with if you were going to carry it or use it for self-defense. So really, overall, those are the only 2 cons on this pistol. And obviously for $339, that is reflected somewhat in these 2 cons. Now, I want to thank Aim Surplus for sending the P226 for this test and evaluation. They always have a lot of different surplus and police trade-ins on their website, and a lot of other great things. Again, it is one of my go-to sources. But one of the things I want to warn you about, guys, is that when these pistols come up on the market, because of the price, they don't last long. And after they're gone, the prices will go up. Be strong, be of good courage. God bless America. Long live the Republic. It's really but these hold up for a P226 for, you know, again, about $140, and that is just fantastic. Double action, single action, revolver. So now I want to thank Sig. Okay.